stand at this crossroads of history. The eyes of all people in all nations are once again upon us, watching to see what we do with this moment.
Mr. President, the whole world knows 9/11 was a lie. Your credibility is going to be destroyed if you keep saying that America was attacked by Muslims on 9/11.
I remind everybody, nearly 3,000 of our people were killed on September 11, 2001, for doing nothing more than going about their daily lives. Al-Qaeda and its allies have since killed thousands of people in many countries.
Obama lügt.
Obama tells lies, just like Bush. I see no fundamental difference, though his tone is different. There's no difference in the facts on the ground, though.
To relieve the strain on our forces, my budget increases the number of our soldiers and Marines. To each and every one of them, we honor your service. We are inspired by your sacrifice, and you have our unyielding support. To meet the challenges of the 21st century, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, from pandemic disease to cyber threats to crushing poverty, we will strengthen old alliances, forge new ones, and use all elements of our national power. We will forge a new and comprehensive strategy for Afghanistan and Pakistan to defeat Al-Qaeda and combat extremism, because I will not allow terrorists to plot against the American people from safe havens halfway around the world. We will not allow it.
Wir hatten in Deutschland.
We haven't had an internationally planned terror attack in Germany. But with you and the 82 million new terrorists, we have to be really alert to keep it that way.
Aufpassen, damit das auch so bleibt. Deswegen überwachen und speichern.
From now on, we keep watch on and record all your activities for 6 months. For example, who you phone and when. Who you email and why. And because you're a terrorist, the Federal Criminal Office from now on can also access your computer. We know your passwords, monitor who you chat with, or rummage around in your personal documents.
Oder stöbern in deinen persönlichen Dokumenten.
We're able to download all data from your computer, change them, and store them completely new.
Verändern oder ganz neu.
A new ID card that, amongst other things, contains your fingerprint. More monitoring cameras and many more other surprises are in store for you.
Überwachungskameras und noch viele
Because you're a terrorist.
Überraschungen warten schon auf dich. Denn du bist Terrorist.
Die westeuropäischen Gesellschaften sollen
The plan is to spread panic in West European societies so that the West European democracies put on security state and police state armor.
Wir haben nach allen diesen Terroranschlägen oder Anschlagsversuchen in den letzten Jahren.
After all these terror attacks and attempted attacks, the rights our constitution guarantees us have been radically cut.
Wir haben etwa nach 9/11 im Jahr 2001 die sogenannten Schili-Gesetze.
Since 9/11, there have been laws about phone tapping, about bans on Islamic associations.
Verbot islamischer Vereine geht. Wir haben nach dem Anschlag in Madrid 2004
After the 2004 Madrid attack came the move to store all our communication data for a long time beyond our control. The authorities know everything about us.
Und wir haben dann nach den Sauerländer Festnahmen.
And after the arrests of the 3 teenagers in September 2007, we got the new law about online searches and large-scale info gathering. It means police can now film into homes and not just listen in as they used to be able to do. All these are attacks on the law-based state by the one who's supposed to defend it, the Interior Minister. I lived for 40 years in a Big Brother state, and I think we need to point to problems. And if people are watched on this scale because they're being critical or naming and shaming, then we haven't moved on by a single step.
Missstände anprangern, da sind wir offensichtlich keinen Schritt weiter. Keinen Schritt weiter. Viele Leute haben
Many people have ideas about what could be changed, what could be done better. They can talk to members of parliament, they can write, but it's all ignored.
Sie können schreiben und das wird alles ignoriert.
The political elites and the security specialists in Washington, just like in Berlin, are well aware that Western societies are heading for huge convulsions, and they're now looking for ways to handle an uncontrollable and impoverished population that might go for the scalps of the rich and super-rich. And for that, these faked, invented terror threats are quite good.
If you are taking decision against the majority of the people, you have to lie, and you have to act undercover, and you have to not to convince, but to frame, to create fear, and this is a function of the secret services.
I started out as a spy back in the 1990s. I worked for the British spy agency MI5, and then ended up leaving, resigning, and blowing the whistle on their crimes and incompetence. And when I say crimes and incompetence, we are talking big-time crimes. The primary reason why I left and blew the whistle was because of a false flag terrorist operation, which occurred in 1996 when MI6 funded a plot to try and assassinate Colonel Gaddafi of Libya. Now, obviously that went wrong because Gaddafi is still very alive, but it did kill innocent people, both with the explosion under the car and the ensuing security shootout. One of the few things that is real about James Bond is that they do have a license to kill if they get prior written permission from their political masters. Now, in this case, they didn't get permission from the Foreign Secretary. So it was illegal as well as a highly unethical and immoral attack. If you want to run any sort of terrorist or false flag attack, it's very much need to know because it's usually highly illegal. So there might be one or two people who have the overall picture, and then other people will have compartmentalised views of what is happening. And there's very much a need to know. I mean, other projects have been kept very well hidden for years. In the Manhattan Project to develop nuclear weapons, I think 130,000 people were involved in that, and nobody breathed a word for years. Same with the Iran-Contra scandal in the 80s, you know, about 5,000 people involved, and it took years for that to be uncovered. When it came to look at things like 7/7, you've got to bear in mind that there is this sort of standard weapon that intelligence agencies use, which is false flag terrorism.
The attacks happened in the morning of the 7th of July 2005, and at exactly the same time that these real attacks, which killed 56 people, were happening, in the same train stations, anti-terror drills were taking place, run by a company that works with the British Intelligence Service.
There was a man called Peter Power who runs a company called Visor Consultants, which specialises in running terrorism drills. And he was running an exercise that morning. And after the bombings had occurred, or the explosions had occurred, he went on the national media to talk about it. And he said live that he was running this operation, and halfway through the operation, the attacks occurred. And they occurred in precisely the same stations at precisely the same times as the ones in his drill.
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organisation, but the crisis team, and the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real.
And he said in those interviews that the hair stood up on the back of his neck because of the coincidence. Now, I don't know, it certainly would be intriguing to find who he was running those drills for, who was paying him, who had organised it. But also it's part of a pattern for other incidents, like the Madrid bombings, like 9/11 itself. Before these big, high-profile terrorist atrocities, there seems to be some sort of security drill going on, which can confuse the initial response to a live attack.
bei allen Anschlägen oder Anschlagsversuchen seit Mitte der
European and American secret services have played a principal role in all attacks or attempted attacks on European soil since the mid-90s. In all these plots, undercover agents, informers and staff of MI6, MI5, BND, CIA, DIA and so on were involved.
Man sollte vielleicht nicht von den Geheimdiensten sprechen, sondern...
But perhaps one should not speak of the secret services, but of the American factions within the European secret services. In close collaboration with their American case officers, they pursue the aim of creating a mood in the old Europe, as Rumsfeld called it, which is critical of American war waging, that will make us also put all our resources into the worldwide American anti-terror struggle.